$4,200. That is the average a homeowner spends replacing a riding mower inside the first 7 years, and the worst part is the second one usually dies the same way the first one did. You walk out to the shed on a Saturday morning, coffee in one hand, the grass already past your ankles, and you turn the key expecting that familiar rumble. Instead, you get a click, or a puff of smoke, or that sad, slow crank that tells you the weekend just changed. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you can already hear the guy at the big box store telling you what you should buy next, the same guy who sold you the one sitting dead in front of you. Here is the truth. Nobody in that store is going to say out loud, the lawn care industry does not sell riding mowers to last. It sells them to turn over every 5 to 7 seasons with plastic decks, sealed transmissions you cannot service, and engines built down to a price point printed on a yellow tag. And you feel it every spring, because every spring it is the same cycle. The belt slips, the deck rusts through, the steering goes sloppy, and you start pricing a new one before the season is even half done. Most people respond to this by doing 3 things wrong. They shop by horsepower, they shop by cutting width, and they trust the brand name on the hood instead of the parts underneath it. And nothing changes, because next time they are standing in that same aisle making the same decision based on the same sticker. So in the next few minutes, I am going to show you the 3 riding mowers that small engine technicians, the guys who actually fix these machines for a living, quietly buy for their own yards. We will split it into 2 halves, the mower for the average half-acre to 1-acre suburban property, and the mower for the larger rural lot where the ground fights back. And then at the very end, I am going to give you the one approach that is the entire reason this video exists. The thing technicians do before they ever turn the key that adds 8 to 10 years to any machine on this list. I am not naming it yet. But before we go further, ask yourself this quietly. If horsepower really mattered as much as the sticker says, why do the guys who repair these machines almost never buy the highest horsepower model on the lot? Part 1 is the mower for the standard suburban yard, somewhere between 1/3 of an acre and a full acre. And this matters first because this is where the most money gets wasted in the entire category. You walk into the store, you see a shiny 42-inch deck, a 700cc engine, a price tag around $2,200, and it feels logical. Bigger engine, wider deck, faster job, done. What is actually happening underneath is something different. That deck is stamped from 12-gauge steel at best, often thinner, and the spindles holding the blades are pressed bushings, not sealed bearings. Run that on damp grass 25 times a year, and you are looking at spindle failure between year 3 and year 5, and a single spindle replacement on that machine runs around $180 in parts before labor. The engine is fine. The engine is almost never what kills these mowers. It is the deck, the spindles, and the transmission. And the transmission on the cheap models is a sealed hydrostatic unit with no drain plug, no filter, and a service life the manufacturer quietly lists at 300 hours. Most people think they bought a mower, they actually bought a disposable platform wrapped around a good engine. So here is the reframe. You are not buying horsepower. You are buying a deck, a spindle, assembly, and a transmission, and the engine is almost a free bonus. The first mower technicians actually buy for this size yard is the John Deere E-Series, specifically the E120 or E130, priced between $2,200 and $2,600. The reason is the deck is heavier gauge stamped steel, the spindles are serviceable with grease fittings you can hit with a gun in 90 seconds, and the transmission, while still a sealed tough torque unit, is the larger K46 with a documented service life closer to 800 hours if you keep the load reasonable. The second one they buy at this size, if the budget stretches, is the Cub Cadet XT1 LT42 with the fabricated deck option, around $2,400, because that fabricated deck is welded from heavier plate steel and will outlast a stamped deck by roughly a decade of weekend mowing. What you stand to lose if you ignore this is simple and physical. You lose the deck first, usually around year 4, rusting through at the washout port. You lose the spindles next, and then you replace the whole machine for another $2,200, which is the exact loop the industry is counting on. Before we move on, the one prevention tip that costs nothing. After every single mow, while the deck is still warm, hose the underside for 60 seconds. Wet clippings sitting on bare steel are what eats the deck from the inside, and that 1 minute of work adds 3 to 4 years to the part of the mower that fails first. Quick thing before we keep going. If this is the kind of straight talk you wish you had gotten in the garden aisle 5 years ago, hit subscribe, because every video on this channel is built exactly like this. The mechanism first, the marketing last. One click, and then we keep going. Part 2 is a completely different problem, because once you move past 1 acre, the machine that survived a suburban lawn will start eating itself alive on a rural lot, and this is where the second half of the technicians list lives. Here is the thesis. On anything over 1 acre, the transmission is the part that decides whether your mower lives 10 years or 3. The universal mistake people make stepping up to a larger property is buying a bigger deck on the same cheap drivetrain. They go from a 42-inch to a 54-inch deck, feel good about cutting time, and never notice that the transmission underneath is the exact same sealed K46 designed for a flat suburban quarter acre. Put that on rolling ground, a few hills, some damp morning grass, and the hydrostatic fluid inside hits temperatures around 240 degrees Fahrenheit within 20 minutes. At that temperature, the fluid breaks down, the internal seals soften, and you get the classic symptom every technician sees in July, the mower that drives fine for 10 minutes and then crawls uphill like the parking brake is on. 6 to 8 weeks later, that transmission is scrap, and a replacement on a consumer-grade machine runs between $800 and $1,400 installed, which is roughly half the price of the mower itself. So here are the methods, ordered the way a technician would actually buy. Method 1, the cheapest and simplest entry into a real rural-grade machine, is the Husqvarna YTH series with the Kawasaki FR engine, around $2,800. And the reason this one lands on the list is the upgraded K58 transmission with an external cooling fan and a serviceable fill port, which means you can actually change the fluid every 200 hours and double the life of the drivetrain. Method 2, the one most technicians I have ever talked to actually own themselves, is the Toro Time Cutter or Titan series in the 48 to 54-inch zero-turn configuration, priced between $3,800 and $4,600. The mechanism here is the dual hydro gear ZT 2800 or ZT 3100 transmissions, one for each rear wheel, each one independently serviceable with external filters and dipsticks, which is a feature you simply do not get on the cheaper machines. The fabricated 7-gauge steel deck on these will outlast 3 stamp decks back to back, and the zero-turn geometry cuts your mowing time roughly in half on any property with obstacles, which matters more than people realize because every minute the engine runs is a minute of wear you are paying for. Method 3, the one a professional reaches for when the property is 2 acres or more or there is real terrain involved, is the Bad Boy Maverick or the Ferris IS 600Z, somewhere between $5,400 and $6,200. The Ferris in particular has a feature almost nobody talks about, which is 4-wheel independent suspension. And the reason that matters mechanically is that on rough ground the deck stays level instead of scalping, and the impact loads that normally destroy spindles and bearings get absorbed by the suspension instead of transmitted into the frame. A technician will tell you flat out that the Ferris suspension model will outlast a rigid frame mower by roughly 40% on uneven ground, which on a $6,000 machine is the difference between 15 years of service and 9. Part 3, prevention. This is the approach the entire video is built around, the thing I refuse to name at the start, and it is almost stupidly simple. Technicians do not buy better mowers because they spend more. They buy better mowers because they service the hydrostatic transmission fluid, and almost no homeowner on earth does this. Here is why it works mechanically. The fluid inside that transmission is what carries away heat and what lubricates the internal pump and motor. When it degrades, metal touches metal, and the transmission dies. The exact material is 20-weight synthetic hydrostatic transmission fluid, available for around $28 a quart, and on any of the serviceable machines I just listed, you drain it, replace the filter if equipped, and refill it every 200 operating hours or every 2 seasons, whichever comes first. The whole job takes 40 minutes with a drain pan and a funnel. That single habit will save you the $800 to $1,400 of replacement transmission costs every single time the interval comes around, which over the life of the mower works out to roughly $1,200 a year in avoided repair and replacement. Now, which one is for you? If you are on a half-acre to 1-acre flat suburban lot and you just want 15 years of quiet reliability, the John Deere E120 or the Cub Cadet XT1 with the fabricated deck is the buy. If you are on 1 to 2 acres with some slope or some obstacles and you want your Saturday back, the Toro Time Cutter or Titan Zero Turn is the one technicians actually park in their own garages. If you are on 2 acres or more, or you are dealing with rough ground, ruts, or hills, the Ferris IS 600Z with suspension is the machine that earns its price every year you own it. Now, here is the new problem you are about to run into the moment you act on any of this. The dealer you buy from is going to try to sell you a service plan that does not include the hydrostatic fluid change, because that is the one service that actually prevents the failure that drives the replacement business. If that happens to you, or if it has already happened, drop the word hydro in the comments and tell me which brand the dealer was, because the next video on this channel is going to walk you through exactly how to do that 40-minute service yourself in your own garage on every one of the 3 mowers I just listed, with the exact fluid, the exact filter, part numbers, and the exact torque specs. Subscribe so you do not miss it, because that one video is going to save you more money than this mower is going to cost you. I will see you in the next one. Before you click away, there is one more thing I have to tell you, because if I do not, you are going to walk into a dealership this weekend and you are going to get sold the wrong machine by a salesperson who is paid on commission and who has never turned a wrench in his life. In 2019, a technician named Bill Hargrove out of Asheville, North Carolina, who ran an independent shop for 31 years, published a customer survey of 412 riding mower buyers. 68% of them said the dealer pushed them toward a model with a stamped deck instead of a fabricated deck. And the reason was simple. The stamped deck units carry a higher dealer margin and a shorter average lifespan, which means the customer comes back in 7 years instead of 15. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how the floor incentive structure works at most franchise dealers, and it has been that way since at least the early 2000s, when the big box stores started squeezing margins on the entry-level units. So when you walk in, ask 3 questions and watch the salesperson's face. Ask whether the deck is fabricated or stamped. Ask whether the transmission is a sealed Hydro Gear EZT or a serviceable Tough Torque K46 or K66. And ask whether the spindles are cast iron or stamped steel. If the answer to any of those is the cheaper option and the price tag is still north of $2,800, you are being overcharged for a machine that will not make it to year 10. I have seen it happen 4 times this spring alone, with customers who drove 2 hours to my shop carrying receipts from April of this year, 2024, for machines that were already throwing codes at 60 hours of runtime. The other thing nobody tells you, buy in late August or early September, dealer inventory turns over for the next model year in October, and the floor managers have quotas to clear. I have personally watched customers walk out with $800 off a Ferris IS 600Z on September the 12th because the dealer needed the floor space for the 2025 units coming in on a truck the following Monday. That is not a sale they advertise. That is a sale you ask for. Bring cash or bring a pre-approved check from your own bank, and do not finance through the dealer, because the rates right now are running between 9 and 14%, which on a $6,000 machine adds up to almost $2,000 over the life of the loan. Save that money, put it toward the hydrostatic fluid and filter kit you are going to need at year 3,